Hello, my name is Kieran Lynch, and I'm delighted to be with you to present topic number three, models of community enterprise and ecosystems. The coordinating partners for this particular topic are TUS and CCJ, that's the Technological University of the Shannon, and Communities Creating Jobs were the Irish partners in the project. This particular topic is broken into two presentations. And this first part, this presentation, the learning objectives are to understand the concept of community in the context of community enterprise. Community enterprise, of course, is the community part of it is a very important part of the concept. And it's not a terribly well developed concept in the sense there's not an awful lot of literature about it. There's a lot of literature about social enterprise, but not so much about community enterprise. So we want to discuss what the term community means in this particular context. Another objective then is to be familiar with some of the characteristics of community enterprises and how they can actually engage with their communities, because there are various ways in which that can happen. And then we'll have a quick look at some different forms of community enterprise. So in the session then we'll be looking at the concept of community and to what it can apply, at the key characteristics of a community enterprise, some of the ways we can think about the community aspects of it, and different forms of community enterprise. So to start off by, what do we mean by the term community? And it's one of those terms that's kind of lost lost some of its meaning in many ways because it's so used in so many different types of context. For example, we all know about the European community, for example. That effectively refers to the EU, which is a combination of a number of companies and different institutions that have come together for mutual benefit. And that's a very, very big use of the word community. And then sometimes it applies to a sector of society, like the business community or the LGBTQI plus community, for example, which refers to parts of society that have particular characteristics, let's put it like that, and whose members, if you like, share certain common characteristics. And then it's used in the context of the international community, which effectively refers to all of the countries of the world and the various international institutions that govern the relationships between them. Another huge use of the term community. But that's not really what we mean by the term community when we talk about community enterprise. In that particular context, we're talking of a smaller, focused kind of elements of society. And it really refers to a set of individuals, households, and organizations of various types who either inhabit a particular geographic space. This is one we'll be all very familiar with, the kind of local community concept, or who are committed to a particular topic, issue, or part of society. And these are often called communities of interest. So, in other words, the people who inhabit those communities, it's not by virtue of living together in a particular area, it's by virtue of their sharing a particular interest. But whether we're talking about a community of geographic space or a community of interest, members of a community will tend to have common characteristics. And one of the important ones is a sense of belonging to that geographic space or that particular grouping. So people will identify themselves partly as being members of that geographic community or as members of that community of interest. They will see themselves, and indeed will be seen by others, as being part of that particular group or grouping. Generally, they'll have some shared characteristics or beliefs. Um, they won't all share all of these, but there will be some common threads running generally through that grouping and groups, those groupings and groups of people. There's often then a wish to share in communal actions, to do things together, to work together for their common benefit, insofar as they share a definition of what that common benefit is. So you'll often find that in particular in communities of geographic communities, where people will come together to provide facilities or activities or services or other kinds of um, other kinds of benefits to the overall community. And then there's kind of that shared wish to attain things, a shared wish for improvement within the community. Again, that won't necessarily be something that everybody will be involved in, but there will be significant numbers of the members of those various communities who will wish to engage in that kind of activity. And then I just put in this concept of reciprocity as an understood value. Reciprocity is an interesting kind of concept. And basically, what it means is that members of a community do things for each other with no intent of personal gain. So we do things for the common good. We do things, we put in effort, we provide resources which will benefit others on the understanding that they will provide the same kind of resources or inputs or effort that will in ways benefit us. So that's part of the glue that holds communities together, is this shared, I suppose you call it voluntary effort, in order to help each other and help ourselves in so doing. Communities then can be powerful drivers of action, they can be powerful drivers of change, because members of the community see things that they want to make happen, they see things they want to achieve, and they make it happen in their own community. And sometimes, indeed, if they do it well enough in their own community, it can influence others and spread the idea or spread the concept or spread the action into other parts of society. If we just have a very brief look at maybe some of the ways in which we can think about the differences between community enterprise, social enterprise, and commercial enterprise. And I'm just looking at this here on two axes. One is social purpose, and the other is community engagement. So in terms of social purpose, commercial enterprises won't be expected to be very high in terms of social purpose. Their fundamental aim is to provide economic benefit to the owners and I suppose sometimes to the workers within that commercial enterprise. It's not to say that they won't do good social things or they won't engage with their communities, but that's not their fundamental purpose. The social enterprise then, it will be high on social purpose, that would be a key defining characteristic, but it won't necessarily be expected to have strong community engagement. It may have, but if it does have, then it is starting to drift into the area of being a community enterprise. Because what we would say about a community enterprise is that it both has a social intent, a social purpose, and also strong community engagement. So that which can happen in a number of different ways. So we can think of community enterprises in different kinds of ways. And we can think of them, as we say there, of the community, for the community, or by the community. So of the community really means that it doesn't matter how it actually started, but it is something which the community is now involved in. The enterprise may have been started by an individual with community or social benefit in mind, but the community now has taken ownership of it and has ongoing involvement in it, even though it may have started, as I say, with an individual. For the community, so this is probably one of the most removed types of community enterprise. It works for a community purpose, but the level of community engagement may not be huge. Now there must be some community engagement, I would say, for it to be a community enterprise. But it is working for the benefit of a particular geographic space or a particular community of interest, even though it may not have huge amounts of direct engagement with the community. And then by the community is, I suppose, the most intense form of community enterprise, in that it arises from within the community. The community is the owner and the community is the driving force and is actively involved in the way the enterprise operates and the way it's run and the way it's structured and where it looks for its future. And of course, we can have a kind of a mixture of those three, I suppose, as well, with different elements of each type showing within a particular enterprise. But I suppose the important point really is that there is a strong community engagement in some sense or another within any community enterprise. And the community can be involved in different kinds of ways. We've kind of briefly mentioned some of them earlier, but ownership is an obvious one. So you can have a very broad-based spread of owners within the community. In other words, lots of shareholders or if it's that type of enterprise, or lots of members of the enterprise if it's that type of enterprise, or it can also involve a small number of actual owners, but who act in trust for the community. In other words, while they are the formal owners, they are doing so on behalf of the community and listen to what the community have to say. Board membership is another way of community engagement. So again, if the community has a say in who the members of the board of the enterprise are, then that's an important mechanism for community engagement, and that can happen in lots of different ways. And then the management can also be community involved, in that there can be an obligation on the management to consult with the community on a regular basis, to listen to what the community has to say, and to respond to the thoughts of the community. There are a few different types of community enterprise structures then. The company is obviously the one we'll be familiar with. Widespread of shareholders and members, of course, it can be, or it can be that narrow set that I spoke about earlier. And there would be a control on the disposal of the shareholding. So, in other words, the shareholding couldn't just be disposed of to anybody, but there would be a requirement that it be disposed of to those who have an interest in the locality, or are from the locality, or resident of the locality, whatever it may be, or part of the organisation if it is a community of interest. And that can be controlled within the terms of the organisation, within the terms of the company. Similar with a cooperative, which is a different form of statutory structure, and it actually involves the members, the owners of the enterprise, of the entity, a bit more than a company necessarily does. And then even in a thing which is called an unincorporated association in Ireland, that's what we call it, which is not set up under any statute. There's just a group of people who come together, agree a constitution, and then operate in accordance with the constitution. And again, there can be restrictions there on who can be a member. So that's just a brief run through some thoughts on what do we mean by community when we talk about community enterprise, how community enterprises can engage with their communities, and a few types of different organizational structure that you can have within your community enterprise. And there's some additional material mentioned there for you with regard to community, the definition and what we mean by community, and different types of organizational structure. So I hope this was of some benefit to you.